Hello, everyone, and welcome to a kind of interesting edition of NFL Corner. We had technical difficulties with the radio station, so we're doing this via photo booth on the Mac in the studio. We want to really do this one, and obviously we're desperate since we're using the Mac to record it. So this is our Super Bowl edition of NFL Corner. I'm Nick Stano. These are my co-hosts, Anthony Benelli and Stephen Peltier. We have our special guest again, Fitz, with us. We have a lot to talk about when it comes to Super Bowl 49, which will be in Glendale, Arizona this Sunday, February 1st, as the AFC champion Patriots take on the NFC champion Seahawks. So let's get right to it. Right off the start, we have some NFL news. Just some big news that wasn't Deflategate this week. Browns wide receiver Josh Gordon failed yet another drug test for alcohol and could be suspended a full year again, and this time with no chance of getting off with only 10 games. And, you know, he's a restricted free agent because he didn't play enough for the Browns last year after being suspended for the last game of the season. So the Browns will be without their star receiver for another season yet again. Wade Phillips and the Broncos have agreed to terms, making Phillips Denver's defensive coordinator for the upcoming season as he makes his return to the NFL. A couple other hires. The Browns hired former Raiders QB coach John DeFilippo as their offensive coordinator. Broncos hired Rick Dennison as their offensive coordinator. The Redskins hired Joe Barry as their defensive coordinator. He was in San Diego. And the Seahawks running back Marshawn Lynch, who will be fined yet again by the NFL for wearing a Beast Mode hat to Media Day on Tuesday and Wednesday, even though he plans to auction both the hats, because it's not a league-approved brand sponsor, is what the NFL is saying, meaning that Beast Mode will face another significant fine from the NFL. Surprise, surprise. Any thoughts on any of that, guys?
I like the Wade Phillips move. I think, he's good. He's a good fit, especially, Denver having some coaching changes going on, so that will be good for them. And as far as Marshawn Lynch, I'm sick of hearing about him in the news. I mean, let the guy live his life.
I think what he did yesterday at his press conference was really good, because he didn't just repeat something for 5 minutes and then just kind of walk away. He just kind of told everyone off. He's just like, I don't know what story you guys are trying to portray of me, but it's not anything accurate, and it's not anything that I care about. Like, the only thing that I care about is my family and going when I go back home. So exactly. I thought that was really good of him to do.
Alone.
Yeah,
I think it was good too. He went on Conan with Gronk, and they were playing Mortal Kombat, which was actually pretty funny. It's interesting.
Conan and clowns.
Yeah. It was funny. Anyone who gets a chance should probably watch that. It's two interesting individuals in Gronk and Marshawn Lynch. I think another story too they're talking about is apparently Richard Sherman might have his child.
Yeah,
we were just talking about this. Yeah. So if his child's born today or tomorrow or Sunday, he won't be playing.
Yep.
Which I thought was really interesting.
But I don't believe that. I mean, he said that, but I don't believe that. He'll be playing.
I mean, that's kind of a huge thing. Your child's born.
T.Y. Hilton played the day his
daughter was
born.
Yeah. And he played he caught a touchdown pass that game too.
Right.
So we'll have to see about
Eric Decker actually came out and said that if his child was going to be born in the Super Bowl, he wouldn't play.
Right.
Yeah, I mean,
but I think
that's different. He's on the Jets. He has no chance of seeing a Super Bowl anytime soon.
True.
That's true. Jimmy, any thoughts?
I think, as you mentioned, the media should just let Marshawn Lynch just do whatever he wants. I mean, clearly the guy doesn't like talking to people in public, so I don't understand why there are rules of how long you have to be there at media day. That makes no sense to me.
It's all about the money. That's all the NFL cares about. So.
And it's a huge attention as well.
Even last year, the same thing. He was required for 8 minutes to be there, and then there was a timer. When it hit 8 minutes, he left.
Got right up. Yep.
So I don't understand. I don't get what is the big deal with Marshawn Lynch and why they're trying to pull something.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe something's going on there. So, all right. So now we're going to move into the Super Bowl special portion of this show. So right off the start, we're going to do our pick'ems to begin with. We're going to say who's going to win the game, why they're going to win the game, who's going to be the MVP for the Super Bowl, and who's going to, or what the final score of the game is going to be. So we'll start off with Benelli and we'll go around. What do you think?
I think if New England gets pressure on Wilson, which Green Bay did, and Wilson had to, run around like a chicken with his head cut off, and he threw 4 picks. And I'll say it again, the only reason why they won that game is because Aaron Rodgers wasn't fully healthy and wasn't able to put them away. 4 interceptions normally is enough to put a team away. So if the Pats get the pressure that I know they will on Russell Wilson, and he starts making bad throws, the Pats are a team defensively that will definitely capitalize off the turnovers. And I have to be honest, I like New England no matter what. Surprisingly, I think it's going to be pretty low scoring in the beginning. I really do, but I think the Pats are going to pull it out in pretty good fashion. My estimate on the game is 34-17 New England. That's what I like.
Who's MVP?
MVP's Brady.
Okay.
MVP's Brady because they're not going to give it. They're not going to give it to someone defensively unless they have a total game-changing game. I mean, if someone comes up with like 2 crucial picks, maybe
like a 90-yard pick six.
Right, but I just think that Brady's just going to be cool and calm and kind of just shut up all the critics that have been, running their heads wild all week. And I like Tom Brady to be the MVP.
All right, Fitz, let's go to our resident Jets fan.
All right. I think the Seahawks are going to win for the exact same reason of why you think they're going to lose. I just don't see Russell Wilson having 2 bad games like that in a row. I think he's too good to have 2 multiple games in a row where he throws 4 picks. And also understood that they're going to be handing the ball off to Marshawn Lynch, and I think that's going to be their game plan. They're just going to jam it down New England's throat, wear down that defense, and then open up the passing game, which is what they've done for the past 2 years. I think it's going to be a closer game than what you think. I'm thinking the score is probably going to be more around 27-24. I think it may come down to a field goal, honestly. I mean, these teams are both so good, it's hard to pick. I mean, they're easily the 2 best teams in the NFL. The game's so hard to pick. It could go either way. I mean, but I just feel like Seattle has that edge right now. And I think the MVP is going to be beast mode. I think Marshawn Lynch is he's going to win. If he says after when they interview him, though, after the game, if he wins the MVP, if he actually says anything is a whole other question. But
So let me ask you a quick question with the Russell Wilson statement. He's too good to do 2 bad games in a row. Take away his legs, he's nothing more than an average quarterback. Do you disagree? If you take away his legs and he's forced to throw in the pocket,
okay,
you think he's more?
I'm
asking
asking
the
Brady's
question.
arm. Is he?
But that's not. You can't ask that.
His IQ. I mean, that's just part of his game, though.
If you took it away, is he still a good quarterback? There's pocket passers and there's mobile quarterbacks. Taking away someone's arm, that's an irrelevant argument.
I should say arm. That's a relevant argument. But
right.
I'm saying if you take away Brady's IQ. Or he has a lower.
That's still not relevant. All I'm saying is if he had to be a pocket passer.
I mean, that's
but
that is irrelevant. But you're saying like, what if he?
All right, so Rodgers is mobile, but because Rodgers' injury, we were talking about it. He was forced.
But is Russell Wilson injured though?
No, but that's what I'm asking. You said he's too good to have 2 bad games in a row.
No,
so I want to know.
He is not. He's too good to have 2.
So if he wasn't,
he had a very very bad first half against Green Bay.
So
I don't think
he was like 0 for 6. It was like 2 for 6 or something like that.
With
like
3 interceptions. Let's not like
2 interceptions.
I'm not taking anything away from him, but I don't think he's an elite quarterback.
Well, I'm not saying he's an elite quarterback either, but I'm just saying that he's too good to have 2 games of that caliber.
We'll have to see because I think if they get the pressure on him and he tries to take off running and he cannot run, that they literally key in on stopping him running the ball. Not even Marshawn Lynch. If Marshawn Lynch burns him for 200 yards, fine. But if they key in on stopping Russell Wilson from getting his average of 70 to 90 yards rushing, I honestly think that he will make mistakes in the pocket because he just cannot sit back in the pocket. He's too small. He has to get out of the pocket to make throws.
Yeah,
if he
I agree
gets
with
stuck
that.
in the back of the pocket,
but are they going to be able? Are they? But I'm saying is the Pats. Are you going to be able to do that?
I assume the Pats are going to focus in on stopping Russell Wilson from running the ball. There is not one receiver on Seattle that can harm anyone in the secondary from New England.
No,
other
I
than
agree with that.
Speed.
I do agree with
that. So okay, that's all I was asking.
Right, but I'm just saying though that I think the X factor of the game though is Lynch. For the
without
Seahawks,
a doubt,
the running game.
Without a doubt. But the
to.
Pats are willing to let Lynch burn them for 200 yards if Russell Wilson can't get a throw going. He can't get out of the pocket.
Right.
They'll let Marshawn Lynch rush for 200 yards and 2 touchdowns and then win the game on their end.
Right, because like the whole thing is that when they played Denver, both times in the past 2 years, or in the regular season at least, they let their running backs run all over them.
Yeah.
But if you look the first time, Moreno had 200 yards rushing, but 0 touchdowns, and they still lost the game.
Right.
Like that's like something that is almost unheard of. Like look at the contrast. Jonas Gray had 200 yards rushing, 4 touchdowns, and pretty much won the game by himself.
Right.
When it came to that, and it's just you can run, you can throw for as many yards as you want. If you don't put it in the end zone, then it's not going to happen. And I think that if you just let Marshawn Lynch run, that's not going to be too much of a problem if you can keep them out of the end zone. But that's kind of where it gets hard because then he's more hard to stop the more momentum he gets. So I guess there's merit to both sides, but I definitely think I would let Russell Wilson throw all over the field as long as he is. If you take Marshawn Lynch out of the equation and if you keep Wilson in the pocket,
I mean that's a big if. I'm saying you guys.
I agree with him. That's a huge.
That's a huge if. Like you're saying, like Marshawn Lynch is something like.
I'm not gonna say like he's not gonna like keep him to like under 20 yards because that's not reasonable.
Let's put it this
way. But if he gets under 70 yards,
force Wilson to stay in the pocket, and you probably can win the game.
To be fair, too. The Pats haven't seen a running game all year like Seattle's running game. Name one team that the Pats played this year that had a better running game or even close to as good a running game as Seattle.
Only
Chiefs. Jamal Charles.
Charles killed them, though.
Yeah, he did kill them. But
well, true. Bell killed them, too. But this is the thing. The only thing is, Lynch is one of the best, but a lot of those teams have 2 backs that can carry the ball. Like DeAnthony Thomas, Niall Davis, and Jamal Charles will kill you.
Right.
With Seattle, it's literally just or Turbin, and Turbin is not very good.
Turbin's like too inconsistent, though.
Right, so it's literally Marshawn Lynch or nothing.
Right.
So I don't even agree with the fact that you said that you have to shut down Marshawn Lynch. I think if you're New England, all you have to do is force Wilson to stay in the pocket. If someone's spying him. Exactly. If he's contained, that would be forcing him to stay in the pocket. So if he does, he's going to have to turn his 5'11" frame into a passing machine because he's not going to be able to get out of the pocket and run. And at that point, they're going to be able to get up on the line and just be run-heavy defense because they know they're just going to keep handing it off to Lynch. Right. I honestly believe that the Pats, if they play this style, can honestly beat the Seattle Seahawks by at least 17 points.
Yeah, and it's not a question of like where the talent lies. It's if you can contain Wilson because Max Unger got banged up in the NFC Championship game after
James
coming back.
Banged up too.
Yeah,
the offensive
line's
hurting.
The offensive line's hurting, but
can we be honest about one thing though?
Their game,
Every player on the team is hurting.
Oh,
it's the Super Bowl.
At this point in the NFL season,
you've just gone
18
weeks with bye 19 fine.
Or
everyone is hurting. No one is even close
like
to 70% right now, unless the guys that haven't played much all year.
Right.
So with that being said, that's a sword for both teams.
Right, and it's like because NFL, there's a 100% chance of injury. Like no one's gonna get through a season completely healthy.
Totally, yeah.
However, when you have a guy walking off the field or getting carted off the field and trying to play this game, that's going to directly affect, especially when Unger's like the anchor for that line.
Right.
So. I mean, that's going to be a big thing for them if he doesn't play. They're going to feel that effect on the offensive line.
That's true.
Tierman, what do you think?
My thing is, I've been looking at the matchup this week, and I still don't understand. I don't know who's going to cover Gronk. I really don't. If you put Cam Chancellor up there, that means you got one-on-one on the outside.
They're going to take their chances of putting Bruce Irvin on him. Why? He's very quick. He's like one of the fastest linebackers in the game.
It's not like
they're though.
Huh?
Seattle's linebackers aren't like big.
Bruce Irvin is big. He's 6'4", 260.
Yeah.
So, only one that's not big is Wagner. He's 5'10", like 220.
Okay,
right.
They're going to put Irvin on Gronk. I'll put money up on that. They will put Bruce Irvin on Gronk all day.
Yeah. Okay,
and I'll bet you money that you'll see something you've never seen. I'll bet you money that Sherman, if he does play, is shadowing Edelman because he's the only deep threat that the Pats have.
That's what I was.
Yeah.
So
then, their backup Simon has to guard who?
Well,
Maxwell so undersized for a corner. Though,
Maxwell will probably get LaFell.
Yep. Which
Maxwell's
means it's a mismatch
LaFell.
for Amendola.
Right.
who Thomas will probably scoop up.
Maybe.
Well, yeah. If
Yeah.
he goes deep, I don't think he would come shallow. If
No,
So-
but he won't. But when
Amendola will probably get like 5-yard
Yeah.
bumps.
right? So but
I
that's
think
I don't know.
I mean that's my who's gonna cover Gronk. If you go linebacker, Gronk's too big for most linebackers. I'm not saying all. So that's Brady's go-to. But the key.
Trust me, they have a plan for Gronk because they know that the Pats don't have
Yeah.
any receivers that are really going to kill them.
Yeah.
There's no detrimental receiver that's going to just totally destroy the game.
While the Pats don't have like a Jordy Nelson or a Randall
They don't have a
Cobb,
single
Right.
receiver that
Right.
can change the game,
They-
no matter what,
but-
especially lined up against that secondary.
right?
Right.
And like where I think that they could like succeed is that they have so many
Multiple
different
running
depth
backs.
options.
Yep.
So like you're not going to just have a guy that will kill you on the outside, but they'll chunk yardage up and down the field. Like they'll have like
Yep.
these, 8-yard plays,
I agree
one
with
after
that
the
to
other.
some extent, but I think you might agree with me. I honestly think that if this game is won by New England, it's going to be by their defense. I don't see
Which
their
will really
offense.
be a
I don't care if
first.
they change a receiver every play.
Yeah.
It's they're not getting through that secondary.
Oh yeah, I definitely
So-
think that Brady's not going to be throwing for 250,
But so Seattle knows the ball's going to try to go to Gronk. 15 targets he'd probably get.
right.
And Seattle knows that.
Right.
And Seattle's going to key in on him. And I think that.
So maybe they
you
double
know-
up Irvin and Chancellor on Gronk and
an
contain him.
an X factor though for the Pats, I will say too, is Blunt. Blunt's going to be huge in this game.
I was gonna say
Seattle's defensive line, that's probably they're small. That's probably like
That's the
I mean,
weakest part.
Yeah,
of
I was going to say that was
Right.
the weakest part of that defense.
which
That's
is really saying something because they're still
Right.
pretty
But
good.
they're still good. I'm not saying that's just their weakest link of it. So I'm saying if they get Blunt,
Which is
Blunt
why they're
start-
going to run the ball a lot.
Which is why they're going to
because-
run the ball.
yeah.
I think you're going to see New England run the ball probably.
But I
more-
think it's going to be a run game.
No,
Like
I think it
said,
is,
if
too. I think
Seattle,
it is.
If Seattle
it is.
gets Wilson stuck in the pocket, I mean, if the Patriots can get Wilson stuck in the pocket, they're going to be running with Lynch. And like you just said, Blunt's going to be the X factor because what's going to happen is Brady's going to have all day to throw because the D line's not going to get through. But that secondary will have everyone covered and Gronk will be double teamed.
It's going to be
That Brady's going to be like, look,
You know-
I don't want to force throws. I'm going to hand the ball off to
this
Blunt
is going to be like
20 times.
This is going to be like a Super Bowl. I feel like from back 10 years ago when
Like kinda
the-
smash
grind
mouth
out,
football.
like
grind
grind
out,
out.
yeah.
It's like 'cause
Literally.
Huge smash mouth
it's
plays.
gonna be a
yeah.
smash mouth football.
Yeah,
Like that's really
it
what
is.
it's gonna be. It's
I
gonna
agree.
be. It's gonna be.
It's gonna be a throwdown. Yeah.
Exactly. That's what it's gonna come down to. It's gonna be fundamental football. Like it's just gonna be running the ball and just play hard defense, and that's what it's gonna come down to. Whoever makes more plays.
All right. So
And
Tier Man.
so,
So who do you have?
I got
Final score, winning
I got
MVP.
I got the Pats. I got the Pats
Okay.
winning by
Obviously, everyone here has a pass.
I think it's.
Guess my religion.
I'm gonna
would be
go-
Pats.
I'm gonna go 27-17. And Gronk the MVP with 2 touchdowns.
Oh,
Ooh, bold. Yeah, I mean, I think that it's definitely not going to be a high-scoring game. I'm just going to go so far as to say that no team breaks 20 points in this game. I'll say the final score is 17-14. I have to go with the Patriots. But I definitely think that it's going to be, like we were saying, just a smash-mouth football game. I think that the Patriots are going to have to rely on Vereen Blount and Jonas Gray to kind of carry them to this win, and then rely on the defense. And I actually think the key for this is whose offensive line is better, because that sets up a great running game that way. And if Stork can stay healthy for the Patriots, that means that line is going to be more solid than it was last week, and they won't probably have to use a 4 offensive line set and eligible plays and everything. So I think that they can do it. I don't think a trick play will work against the Seattle defense. I think that you just need to come straight forward and attack them head on and not be afraid of kind of this, I guess, kind of reputation they've built up as being, the most aggressive defense when it comes to that. I think you just need to play their style of football and just hit them back. So I'm going to say 17-14, Patriots win. And I think they'll name, probably Brady if he has a good game, MVP. If Blount ends up having a really good game too, then Blount. I think it's whoever's the better running back will probably get Super Bowl MVP.
I think another big aspect of this game too is the coaching matchup. And even
We'll
though
talk about
even
that.
though I am picking Seattle to win, I think the Pats have a huge advantage when it comes
Without
to
a
the
doubt.
coaching matchup.
Without a doubt.
I mean, Pete Carroll's he's a player's coach. Players love playing for him. They love him. They respect him. But obviously Belichick, he's known as a genius. So, I mean,
That must hurt you physically to say.
It does. It kills me. You ever see That's My Boy
Yeah.
with Rex Ryan and
Yeah.
cracks me up. But yeah, no, I think that's a huge factor in this game is how is Belichick going to prepare his guys and how is Carroll going to prepare his guys. Oh, sorry, Benelli over there just showing us something on his phone.
Sorry, Tiger Woods is all done.
What's he at right now?
13 over.
Oh,
Dead last.
Oh man. So we're gonna go. I guess we were already kind of talking about this, but we'll just go right into key matchups. So now that we've talked about our predictions and everything, what do we think is going to be the single key matchup for this game? And then what are going to be some of the other ones that no one's really talking about?
I'm gonna go back to what I just said. It's gonna be Patriots line. It's gonna be their defensive line and their linebackers against Russell Wilson. Against the offensive line and Russell Wilson. The pressure that they can generate if they can contain Wilson in the pocket. I think that's the key matchup if New England wants to win.
The underrated matchup is...
to me, the underrated matchup is, and you made a good point. No, you made a good point. It's blunt. If Brady finds out that he can't throw the ball because the secondary is too good and he's not, and they're literally shutting down his one go-to, Gronk. He doesn't want to force throws. He's smart enough now and been around long enough. He's not going to force too many throws. I mean, you might see one or two out of him, but he's not going to force a lot of throws. So I think it comes down to the opposite. The defensive line for Seattle and the linebackers, if they can shut down, Blunt or whoever's touching the ball, if the Patriots look to go 30 carries, then who's going to be, up on that line stopping that if that's the way the Pats want to try to move the ball. So that's kind of like the underrated matchup, I think.
Fitz?
So I think it's interesting if you really think about it. I mean, other than Gronk, he's not really he's not really a receiver. He's a tight end, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
But if you really look at the receivers on both teams, like there's
not
one guy that really wows you. I mean, Edelman's great, Baldwin's great, but they're not like top notch receivers though.
I wouldn't say Baldwin's even. I would say Baldwin's average at best, to be honest.
Right, he's above that. He's good. He's solid. Okay, we'll use solid, and so is Edelman. And then you look at the other side of the ball. Both teams have great corners, and it's just like that's why I think the run, going back to what Benelli said about the running game. That's why I think the running game for both teams is just going to be so crucial. It's going to come down to, like I said, I think it's just going to be a running game, which would be interesting because if you're like New England, they just air the ball out. Like how many times they didn't run the ball once in
the second half
of the Baltimore game.
Right.
Like they're gonna have a totally different game plan against Seattle.
Because they figured out against Baltimore that they could just pass down against that
horrible
secondary.
secondary is terrible, and that's
with a few exceptions like Matt Elam, that defensive
They were even
secondary
saying
was
that they were
hurting.
pulling guys off the practice squad for playoff games.
Well, because they had like 7 guys that were hurt off their defensive secondary.
Yeah.
Anyway.
But no, I think that's what the matchup's going to come down to. I think it's going to come down to Blunt versus Seattle's D linebackers and Marshawn Lynch against Patsy, and I think those are going to be the two key matchups of this game. Because I think in the end, like both corners, like the corners of both teams are just gonna I don't think much is going to be able to happen in the pass game.
All right, Chairman.
I think
key matchup, underrated matchup. Go.
Key matchup is both defensive lines because the best way to contain a quarterback either way is not by blitzing, and I think so. Whatever team can get there with their front four and don't have to bring extra rushers, that will be a huge factor. Because if you got to bring 5, especially in New England's case, if you got to bring Collins and Hightower,
Hightower, I don't think Hightower's going to be going every single play.
But I'm just...
I think they would be more likely to drop back Collins,
I'm just
he's
saying,
a coverage guy more than Hightower.
If you got to drop,
but
still,
that
lane,
they're going to
leaves,
key in if you send Hightower every time. They're just going to assume that Collins is going to drop back. You got to send some different.
So that just leaves lanes for Wilson to get out and kill you with his legs, along with Brady. We all know he can't run, even though sometimes he runs for 4 yards or whatever. So if they can just bring 4 guys
5.240
Yeah.
combine Tom Brady, by the
Yeah.
way. Fun fact.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, he can
Slowest.
take off when there's the closest guy to him is 40 yards downfield,
Right.
and he'd be lucky
That's
to maybe
what I-
get 3-4
That's
yards.
what I
off
mean.
of it.
Yeah. Underrated matchup. I would have to go the wide receivers against.
Wide receivers of New England, who can
Yeah.
step up?
Yeah.
Are they going to have one guy that can step
Step
up and
up.
help Brady out if Gronk's getting doubled? That's a good pick. I like that.
Yeah. All right.
Who do we think's gonna go on? Who do we think's gonna cover Edelman? I know we kind of briefly.
I
talked
think
about
Sherman's going to get I think Sherman will shadow him a little bit because he's probably the only deep threat. And I think that because LaFell's pretty big and physical, that you have to put Chancellor on him. So,
But I mean,
you have to understand. This is what you have to understand about Seattle. Their actual corners, Sherman,
Maxwell, Simon.
Byron Maxwell, and Simon. Simon's undersized.
Maxwell was their number
He got-
3 last year before
he got
while they had
burned.
Brownie.
Maxwell's slow. He's
Yeah.
big and physical. He's slow. He's like a
He's like a
Browner.
Brown.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think
that's another interesting thing to bring up. I mean, do you think New England has any advantage at all when they have Brad? No, I'm saying
because he was in Seattle.
he was in Seattle, so I'm saying, but he knows. Like, I mean, yeah, the game plan's going to be different every time for every team, but I'm saying, though, that he probably...
I mean, he might know their Thomas,
he might be
Chancellor, and
able to
Sherman's
see, he may be able
tendencies.
to, no, but I'm saying he may be
better,
able to
but-
see something. Like, think about it. He practiced against that offense all of, like, I mean, for a whole season. I mean, you would think that he would be able to, he might be able to see something in the offense that maybe someone else doesn't see. You know what I mean? Like,
I mean, if you can get it by Belichick, that's probably one thing. He's a defensive coach. I don't put anything on McDaniels because he's pretty bad.
oh,
But
yeah,
I mean, I think that could be helpful, but I don't think it's going to be the reason why they would pull out the win
Right.
or anything. I do think he could help out because he knows maybe Sherman, Thomas, Chancellor, Maxwell's tendencies better than just looking at them on tape.
right.
So I think
That's
that could
what I'm
help.
saying.
But
Yeah,
I mean,
I mean, obviously it's not gonna be a huge deal, but I'm
Right.
saying though that
it could be a small factor. Yeah.
you know, like I feel like it could be a factor.
Yeah. I mean, my key matchup.
Everything's a factor.
Yeah, my key matchup for seriously. I mean, my key matchups for this game are the both offensive lines against the defensive front sevens of both teams because, like we were talking about again, smash mouth football. You need your offensive line to be absolutely playing its best football. It needs to be like the Great Wall of China. Like nothing can get through if you want to win the game. And I think, that will be the biggest matchup to look out for. I think my underrated matchup would be special teams, and that's something that no one's really talking about because, Seattle won with special teams plays against Green Bay. The Patriots have had quietly a solid, special teams play, on kickoffs. You saw big hits from Brandon Bolden, who's probably the worst running back on the team, but he's great on special teams. They've blocked a couple punts and everything, so I think that special teams will be the X factor when it comes to this game. If both defenses are playing really well, both offenses are doing well. It's going to come down to special teams play.
Pat's blocked a decent amount of field goals this year too, and I mean that's also a huge thing. They get a blocked field goal that could be the difference of a win or a loss. So
and you had Chancellor jumping the lines
my
against
three.
There was two plays in a row, and it was called back for penalties both times. And it was
Not
just
only
crazy.
that, but flips field position. Because if you
Yeah.
give either offense a short field,
Yeah.
that's big.
If you're
too.
trying to go for a 40-yard field goal blocked, I mean, you recover it right there. I mean,
Not only
if
that,
you don't run it,
I'm talking punting.
that's true as well.
punt, too.
Yeah. So, just a couple, things to look out for. But I do think we should spend a lot of time on this topic. Fitz brought it up earlier. We're going to talk about the coaches and their legacies. Just because this is something that no one's really talked about. Or if they've brought it up, they've only brought up that Carroll coached in New England before Belichick took over in 2000. But you have to look at these coaches because they've both done really great things, and this could cement one's legacy and further another one's legacy potentially. So just looking at the numbers, they've both had really impressive careers. Belichick has 211 wins and 109 losses in his career in 20 years, between 5 years with the Browns and 15 with the Patriots. He's had 3 Super Bowl rings, of course, all with the Patriots, on top of 6 conference championships and 14 division titles as well. The last time a Bill Belichick coached team had a final record of under 500 in the regular season was his first year there, which was 2000. And they haven't had fewer than 10 wins in a regular season since 2002. So, I mean, this is just showing how consistent and how high level of play this team has had for such a long time under his rule. When he came in 2000, he helped the Patriots become what many called a dynasty for a while, and even they're still widely considered one of the best teams in the league, despite some opinions. And like many say that, Belichick, when he's done, is likely to become a Hall of Fame coach, and with some of the numbers that he's been putting up, with like playoff wins and all of that, he very well could be. And you have Pete Carroll on the other hand, who has 83 wins and 61 losses in the NFL as a head coach. More than half of those wins have come in his tenure in Seattle, which he's only been there since 2012. Carroll also coached for Fitz's Jets and the Patriots for 3. He coached the Pats for 3 seasons as well. But then he went to USC, and he had unofficially 97 wins and 19 losses while he was there, and he went 7-2 in bowl games. Carroll led the Trojans to 3 consecutive Rose Bowl wins between 2006 and 2008, and when he left in 2009 or 10, he made the jump back to the NFL and just helped completely turn around Seattle's program. He had USC as one of the best college football programs in the nation for the better part of a decade while he was there for 9 years. So, he's turned the Seahawks around from, a maybe team every year to a solid contender, a young and dominant football team. So both these coaches have done great, but my question is, what will the legacy of these coaches be when their careers are over? Will Carroll be remembered for his first stint in the NFL as a head coach, or will he be remembered for his tenure at USC or his tenure now in Seattle?
It'll be now if he wins this Super Bowl, because that would be 2
back-to-back, for the first time since 2004.
I think no matter what, I think people will still remember him for.
Especially in our era.
Our era, definitely.
He
won the Super Bowl last year too, and then mean, regardless of winning or not, he still made it too. Obviously they wouldn't look at it as a success, but he did have another back-to-back Super Bowl appearances. That's tough. That's very tough to do, and to win 2 in a row, that's very hard to do in the NFL.
One thing that you didn't talk about is the way that the media and fans portray someone who has done something.
Like Carroll had the scandal at USC with Reggie Bush and everything.
That is so minor compared to what's going on now and what happened with Spygate and all that stuff. You have to remember, Joe Paterno was probably the most single-handedly dominant coach, and maybe top 5 in all of football. And he just got his wins back. His assistant, and he lost his statue. He lost everything. That's what people remember Joe Paterno as. Yeah. I guarantee you, if you type in Joe Paterno on Google, that's the first thing that will come up. Is something to do with that. So with that being said, I think that you got to look at it doesn't matter how many Super Bowls Belichick's won. Yeah. What is he going to be remembered as with all this scrutiny and scandals that are over his head through the media? You have to remember, media talks. Yeah. 4 guys in a radio booth could love him dearly. All of Pat's Nation could love him dearly, but he is portrayed right now as he's done a lot of bad things that people say is the guy a cheater, blah blah blah. So his legacy is up in the air, to be totally honest.
And that was the other part. This was part 2 of this question was, will Belichick be remembered for the Pats becoming a dynasty from one of almost the worst teams in football for a while in the early 2000s, or or being one of the best teams in the league for the better part of almost 2 decades now, or will he be remembered for Spygate and this ridiculous Deflategate?
Right. I'm not saying I agree with either of them, but it will.
I was
he will
just
always
asking
be
if what your
perceived.
opinions were.
He will-
So
well,
I think that he should be remembered for what he's done as a coach.
But
not
it won't
necessarily-
happen if
but
there's allegations
with
on all
everything.
these things
Yeah.
in the same time period that he's winning Super Bowls.
Mhm.
People are gonna say, "Well, what else does he do that's not
Right.
coming out?"
Right.
You know.
I mean, yeah,
if-
it's going to be
trust.
tough to
you
see,
lose
but
the trust of people. I mean, you make a mistake one time, fine. You make a mistake 2 times. With continuously winning a lot of games, people start to wonder.
Yep.
You know,
I
it does
definitely-
take away from the victories. Maybe not for the fans.
I definitely think that
But-
he will be a Hall of Fame coach. However, I mean, a lot of people still have questions about it, and the media can talk,
But again, you can't say that. You cannot say you think he'll be a Hall of Fame coach until down the road. Barry Bonds will never get in the Hall of Fame. Mark
Well, that's
McGwire will
completely
never
different.
get in the. It's not though.
well,
They're not
I
going to get
think-
in because they did something wrong that is viewed in the eyes as something wrong. It's just as wrong as you're harming yourself when you do steroids
Yeah.
in baseball,
Mhm.
and here you're cheating to win games. That's the allegation.
Right.
You will not get into the Hall of Fame if your persona through the league and everything is you are cheating to win games. That's
Right.
not going to change.
And I think, but I mean, you still have to look at it because even if you check the ballots every year, you're going to see Barry Bonds, Roger
Right,
Clemens,
but you
and
need 75% of the
and Mark
votes, and those
McGwire.
guys are not ever going to get out of the 30s where they've been. I think that you have to understand negativity outrides positive in any aspect of life.
and I don't think that this Deflategate is going to be as critical as like maybe Spygate was because that was
but if
that
they
was
win
worse,
the Super Bowl,
but
that's
Spygate-
going to get rediscovered.
yeah.
Spygate's definitely way worse than
Oh, without a doubt.
Deflategate. Deflategate's kind of the equivalent, if you want to go back to the baseball, is kind of like Pineda with the pine tar.
Yes.
Right, yeah,
Yes.
It's the same,
exactly.
it's the same
It
kind of
is.
thing.
Except this was blown way out of proportion.
Right.
Just like the pine tar
Pineda,
incident
yeah.
was.
I
was.
mean, it's the same. It's on the same level. It's just like for the whatever's more comfortable. It's
It kind of started out the same way too, because everyone noticed that Pineda had like a shiny neck, and then all of a sudden it became this huge story.
right.
It is, but
So-
how does it look? How does it look? And I'm just playing devil's advocate. I have no interest in this topic because I think it's asinine that it's even been a topic in
It
the
is.
media for the last 2 weeks.
Same.
But I'm playing devil's advocate by saying, well, why is everybody in the New England organization pointing fingers at everyone else?
I mean, that's definitely
That's
a huge thing
suspicious.
too.
That
Yeah,
looks suspicious.
yeah. I mean, you had one guy come out. I forget his name, and it's passing me right now. But he said that the PSI of the footballs weren't logged, so I guess he's pointing now the blame back at the referees.
Right.
There was that locker room
Well, I don't want to
attendant
get
that
into
took
the whole
the.
Deflategate talk.
Right,
but all
no,
I'm saying
just
is
saying, like,
you will always
there's
be
blame being
remembered
pushed around
for
everywhere.
negativity.
Yeah.
You will always be remembered. That goes for a regular Joe Schmo on the street
Yep.
to
Yeah.
an icon. You will
Yeah.
be remembered for your negative over your positive. I'll use the example of golf right now. Tiger Woods, he's won 17 majors. He's every tournament you could think of, he's won
He
every
made
single
the
time.
sport of professional
And
golf
now,
mainstream.
the only thing you will hear about Tiger Woods is he's done, he can't play, the scandal. It's always the negative will outweigh the positive. It doesn't
Right.
matter if the negative is 99% and the negative is 1, the negative will always outweigh. So I think that really does hurt his legacy because 2 scenarios that he got accused of in crucial times of the season. And if it happens late in the season, someone's going to say, well, has it happened all year and we never knew? And now the Ravens players were saying, well, the balls, we thought they seemed a little deflated when we played them. You know, it's just, you're never really going to know the answer.
I mean, I think
But
that
it
at
is
that
gonna-
point, they're trying to keep the heartbeat of the story alive.
Well, it
because
is
they want
costly.
something.
It's costly for
Right.
it could tarnish his career. I'm
Right.
not,
The only all right, I'm gonna play a little devil's advocate just on your side. I mean, against your point.
Devil's advocate of a devil's
A
advocate.
devil's advocate of a devil's advocate. That's what I'm doing. So I think that kind of like going back to comparing it to baseball, people say he was on steroids, but then the other people say, well, he still had to execute. He still had to hit the ball. He still
That's
had
true.
to do all that. I mean, regardless of what Belichick did, he still had to execute. Like you said, he hasn't had less than 10 wins since 2002.
Yeah.
I mean, you still have to have a good football team. I mean, Brady goes down in what year was it? 09?
Yeah.
Matt Castle comes in.
so I'm not
and
taking anything
and-
away from skill level. I'm not even saying
I'm
that
just saying
this
though
is
is
wrong.
that And I'm not taking
as a fan,
Oh, yeah,
you will
yeah,
always be perceived negatively.
But I'm saying, though, that
He's saying as a coach.
I'm saying as a coach.
I
I mean,
understand.
look at Matt Castle. Matt Castle,
10-5.
is he even in the
They didn't make the
they're
playoffs that
11-5.
year, but it was a good
Right.
They
year.
were the
Was
only.
it
I'm pretty sure they
11-5?
were the only team in NFL history.
No, they went 10-6 that year
10-6
because
and they
the
didn't
Jets
make
went
the
11-5 or were
No,
they
no,
12-4?
11-5.
I thought the
Pretty
Pats
sure it was
were
11-5.
11-5.
But I'm pretty
The
sure
year
that they were
didn't
the.
make
I'm
playoffs?
pretty
Yeah,
They were
sure
11-5.
11,
Okay.
11-5. I'm
the year
pretty
they
sure
didn't make
was like the best record to never make the playoffs.
Yes, it was.
Tied.
Right,
It was
yeah.
the tied.
Tied. Yeah, I'm sure there were other teams that went 11-5 that didn't make it, but
Yep.
I mean that just goes. I mean he had Matt Castle back there in one. I don't know how many games he actually played.
Probably 10 because it was.
Because he went down in the preseason.
No,
Oh, it was a regular season. Yeah.
Regular season.
Against the
season,
Chiefs.
it was
versus the Chiefs.
Chiefs.
Yeah.
I mean, he turned Matt Castle into a very good quarterback to the point where when Brady came back, other teams were like jumping on him.
Can
like,
we get Castle?
Can we
He
get
went to the
Castle?
Chiefs.
What's
Should-
Matt Castle doing right now?
Should
He's
he
back
be
up on the
working
third
Vikings.
string at the Vikings?
Yeah.
The Vikings.
Should
He's the third
he
string
be?
of the Vikings.
Should he be in the Hall of Fame? Yes.
Yeah, he definitely.
Without a
should.
doubt.
Yeah.
Will he? I don't know.
I don't-
Because of everything else that goes on, I don't know.
I mean,
I'm
I
willing
still
to
think
bet you
he
money, though,
should.
with the baseball scenario, that those guys do not get in. And if
Alright.
they do get in, I'd be in unbelievable shock.
I mean, this baseball topic. We could talk about this baseball topic for
oh, yeah.
we could say for hours to talk about it. But
Yeah.
I get what you're saying though.
Right.
They're not going to. But you also have to think though too is that the people who vote for the baseball writers who vote in the Hall of Fame are very. The MLB is such a stats-based sport. Everything is very stats-based. It's most home runs, most RBIs, most stolen
But it's
bases.
But with
Also
an asterisk.
strict.
But with asterisks, right,
Yeah.
right. They're very, very
Like
strict.
they haven't taken away anything that
And they're
Bonds
very, very
did.
old. They're very, very old school too. So
Right.
any kind of act of cheating at all,
Right. They're very,
Sorry, guys.
they're very strict.
Really, in the middle of a show? This is a highly produced show.
So-
Clearly, Fitz. Damn.
Sorry, but the NFL isn't at. They're not as strict when it comes to those kind of things. Like football. I mean, football is a statistical based sport,
Right.
but not as much as baseball because there's so many categories of statistics
Yeah.
in baseball.
Well, people are going to come in and people are going to say, well, look, he won, a lot of games. He won the Super Bowls. He put no-name guys out there and found a way to make them good.
He turned
But-
guys that weren't even like in their
But,
position.
like
as
I just
drafted
said
and
with the
turned
Joe
them around.
Paterno, Joe Paterno could have won the most games ever. And I guarantee you go search, you're really going to find more negative than you are positive. And that's just going to stick with him. Now it comes down to the voters in the Hall of Fame and all that. But honestly, as playing devil's advocate, I think he's deserving just based off of the games he's won. But I'm going to tell you, that is not going to leave anyone's mind anytime soon.
No, I'm not saying that Belichick's reputation won't be hurt by any of this because it's definitely been tarnished since 2007 when Spygate came out.
Right.
And people were just like, oh, they haven't won a Super Bowl since.
Since,
But they've also been to a Super Bowl.
That's the new thing.
Yeah.
That he hasn't won one since then.
Yeah, but I mean, like, they went to a Super Bowl in 2007. They went to a Super Bowl in 2011. They're going back to the Super Bowl this year. It's not like they're bad teams. All right,
No.
they haven't been able to pull out the win. But that doesn't necessarily mean they did it by cheating the first couple of times as well. It's all speculation at this point as to, why they didn't do nearly as well as before.
True, but
And-
it's the nature.
and
The
it's-
Colts know
Right.
that they were going to lose that game. Let's be honest. They could be throwing around a peanut butter and jelly sandwich in that game, and the Patriots were going to beat the Colts.
Yeah.
No one
It's just
on the
gonna
Colts
happen.
is coming out and saying that they would have won the game.
And Jaquan
Right.
Jackson was just like, I didn't even know about this. Like
Yeah.
that.
So- It's the nature,
Yeah.
though, that once you do something wrong, there's always going to be the, well, what have they been doing that we don't know? What
Right.
happened week 7 against whoever that
And-
they could have done this or they could have done that?
and it's
That's
not like-
always going to be in the back of someone's mind.
And it's a different thing when it's like a New England Patriots type franchise or like
Right.
the Dallas Cowboys, the Green Bay Packers. When you have a big name franchise like that, it's definitely going to affect it more. Like, no offense, but like this isn't like the Tampa Bay Buccaneers or
Oh,
like
yeah.
the Jacksonville Jaguars. Like these are franchises
Browns.
that have been, kind of like stories or, some of the most storied
Right. It would have
franchises
no
in the
publicity,
league.
but you think that, like, if a Mike Patton had this happen in the Browns, you don't think that guy would be gone?
Oh,
He'd
he
get
would
him
be
out of town in a
gone.
minute.
I mean, the
Because
fact that
whatever
Belichick has his
reputation-
job is...
Whatever reputation that a small team like that has with
Yeah.
very little publicity, the second something negative comes out, what do? They panic. See ya.
Like only because of Belichick's success in like only a couple years before is I think why he was still with the Patriots after 2007.
Right, but
But it's still, I mean,
you guys know Bob Kravitz is coming out making all these on Twitter. I'm not sure if you guys see it, but he comes out all the time saying that Kraft should fire Belichick, and this, that, and the other thing. No, it's ridiculous. They're not going to fire Belichick.
the only way Belichick's out is when he wants out.
yeah.
So
And I don't think he's going to want out
soon.
until at least
Brady
Brady
retires
retires
or something like that.
or
Yeah.
something like that. And who knows, even then, he still might stay.
All right, so I mean, we've all agreed that Belichick is, or should be rather, a Hall of Fame coach, but may not be because
where do
of.
you put him against the greatest of all time coaches? Where is he ranked there?
You got
Are we basing this again off of
he's got to
his
finish out
numbers
the rest of his
or-
career, number one. And number two, you got to remember, well, in defense to...
I'm saying right now.
Okay, so then I'll answer
So-
you the
so
answer.
if
From
he-
defense to the Vince Lombardis and the guys that, Shula, back in that era,
Yeah.
when they had literally no media whatsoever.
Yeah.
When Vince Lombardi was there was the film was black and white in a little room with desks like a regular middle school room.
Yeah.
There was no headsets from up top coming down to the sideline. There was no media. And that helps. The technology in today will help any team. You can ask anyone. They're thinking about putting cameras in the helmets now for the guys.
The GoPros,
right.
the helmets, yeah.
Technology rules in society, especially in football. The coaches that did it with minimum to no technology, those guys, to me, will always be top of the food chain.
And
So,
then-
but even.
And that, he's got to be up there.
Oh, yeah.
what I'm saying, like what number?
I'm not going to give you a number. until he's done with his
Done.
career. I'm going to
Okay.
say he's in the top 10 without a doubt.
Okay, that's where I was going to go
Right
with
now.
as
Right
well.
now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right now.
Yeah, he's
But he'll
not-
never pass the guys that
Right.
did it with no
I'm not-
technology,
Right.
no scrutiny coming out about them. And to be honest, when those guys were winning Super Bowls and championships, they were doing it with total different, not only technology through like
A
media
different style of
electronics,
play as well.
different style of play,
Yeah.
different rules, and total different equipment,
Yeah,
which
Yeah.
totally changes the whole game. It almost makes it that it's a total different sport.
right.
So I just can't put any coach in today's era ahead of someone that was killing it back then.
So what about today's era?
Today's era, if we're just saying in today's era, he's got to be top. He's got to be the best. He's got to be the best.
And like the other thing is
In the
that.
NFL, well, I'm not talking college. I'm just saying in
Right,
the NFL,
right,
he's got to
in
be
the
the
NFL.
best. Yeah.
And I even
He's gotta
think
be the
like Belichick could also fall into this like weird limbo era, but like between the 80s, 90s, and 2000, and like the early 2000s, where I mean you didn't have surfaces on the sideline with tablets and everything.
Right.
Like you were
Right,
still
that's-
you were still printing out like sheets of film on the sidelines, looking at them
exactly.
before a play, and you even see it like now. Like he hasn't had a surface. He's not reading plays off of that like some coaches
still
are.
old
He
school.
still has like the clipboard and the sheets of paper in front of his face anyway. So I guess he can kind of fall back into a bit more of an old school coach by today's standards.
Yeah.
And I even still think then he's arguably top 10 in modern era, definitely top 5. It's just, that's going to be an interesting question, like when his career's over, when everything's said and done. I mean, even if they lose the Super Bowl on Sunday, he's still gone 3-3 in 6 appearances in the Super Bowl. How many coaches can say that they've been to 6 Super Bowls?
He's also
Anyway.
had a lot of like coaching changes inside of his staff. If you think about it,
Right.
he started off
He won the first 3 with Charlie Weiss and Romeo Crennel.
Yep.
Then Weiss went to Notre Dame and
Right.
Crennel went to Kansas City,
Kansas
the head
City,
coach
yeah.
there. And then you had McDaniels, then he left,
Right.
and then you kind of switched around staff a lot. I mean, Patricia's only been there for a
like
couple
the
years
thing
too.
is too
so.
is like I mean they don't really talk about it, but when you have like all those like coaching changes going on within, I mean even though that they're just coordinators, I mean he still kept it all, he still kept it together, and like they were still very successful with
Right.
all those changes going on, which goes to show you that it's his team.
All right, so kind of switching gears, where does Pete Carroll rank among the head coaches? Not of all time. We're not talking about when he's retired or anything. Where does he rank in head coaches in the league now?
I mean, I think he's like I said before, I think he's a player's coach, and I think players.
That's
like to play
exactly
for
what he is. So that
He's
doesn't
a
mean
player's
he's
coach. Hey, let's be real. I mean,
Rex Ryan's one of the best players coaches out there.
Right.
So, but that doesn't necessarily mean he's a great coach.
Right. I mean,
so
like,
I don't even think Pete Carroll's.
I mean,
in the
we've
top
already
five.
we've already agreed that Rex Ryan would make the best defensive coordinator any team could have. He's just probably not the head coach material most
Right.
teams want. But
I mean, that defense is so good that I feel like no matter who was the coach of that team, that defense would still perform to the high level that it is.
I think we'll really answer that question next year when Quinn goes to
Quinn's
Atlanta.
a very good defensive coordinator.
He's going to Atlanta, though, to be
Right.
their head coach. I mean, it's almost certain. Like, even Seahawks defensive players were talking about him going to Atlanta. So, I mean, we'll really see how that works next year.
I don't think Carroll's in the top 5 right now.
No.
You know, but I will give him credit
I give him
that
top
3
10.
years ago he did.
Yeah.
I'll give him top 10 right
But
now.
he's not top 5.
Top five,
So
no.
if he wins on Sunday, does he move into the top 5 then?
No.
You got to think
Or
about
is this more like a players winning, not the coach helping, or not?
I don't know. He did turn around.
Coach being
he did
foundation.
turn around Seattle.
Well, that's what I'm.
That was like what I was going to bring up. Is that
He did turn around Seattle, but Seattle
turn around
also
Seattle.
moved around like 30 guys
Right.
when
Yeah.
he came in.
Well,
They just
yeah.
made so many personnel
When Carroll
changes.
came
That-
in his first they gave Flynn that
They
huge
gave him that
con-
huge
deal.
contract because he had that one backup game in
Yeah.
Right,
Where he threw like
Like,
300, 400 yards.
So he went against the GM's word basically
And took
and
Wilson.
said Wilson's a better quarterback and
Yeah.
I'm going to start him and I don't really care what you guys think about it.
and look at all the
obviously-
success.
Look
that
at that.
they've
I mean,
had.
I know
Right,
you said
right.
that Wilson isn't an elite
He's
quarterback.
definitely better than Matt.
He's a very
Excuse me, definitely better than Matt Flynn.
he's a very solid quarterback.
Yeah,
though,
he is.
Russell Wilson.
And I'm going to say that Pete Carroll's probably just outside the top 5, but I don't think.
It's like 6 or 7.
I mean, if he wins, you got to say he's in the top 5. You know, how hard it's very hard
Yeah.
to win. I'm not saying top 5 all time. Say top 5 in the league right now, though.
Yeah.
But this is the thing.
And then you have also
Super
you have a lot
Bowls
of
talk. That's the only problem I have with looking at a stat like this. Is Super Bowls talk. Okay. Now I'm going to use this as an example, not because I like them, but I'm going to use this as an example. I know he can't win the big game, but the fact that Marvin Lewis can put together a team every single year, and you have to agree with me here, until they brought in A.J. Green, which kind of jump-started them getting back into the talks of being a pretty good team, they had no-name guys. They had Achilles Smith at quarterback for 4 years.
In T.J. Ushman-Zeta.
Ushmanzada, yeah. They had
Zeta.
Best
Warwick.
last name to ever put on a jersey.
I don't know about that. But, they had Peter Warwick. They had no-name guys in the playoffs every single year.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of great coaches out there. But again, to me, I agree with you so much with you saying he's a player's coach, which doesn't take away from
No,
him
it
as a
doesn't
coach,
because that's a
but
big
it just
part of it. That's a
forms
big.
him.
It's a big part of it.
Right.
Like I mean,
It's
Belichick.
who can win the big
It's
games.
almost like in
for-
golf. I'm going to use this example. If you're playing in a tournament and you're in a group with a group of guys that you really like playing with and you
Yeah.
enjoy playing with, you have a much better chance of having a good round. Do you not?
No, you definitely.
And if you're playing with a group of guys
Obviously,
you
we
don't
know
like,
this.
you're
Yeah.
probably not going to play
Yes.
well.
Right.
So, yes, him being a player's coach, which is true, he is definitely a benefit. But if we're just looking at someone who is a coach, strictly a coach, he does his job. He's the guy who goes into work. He's not your enemy. He's not your friend. He's not going to take you out to dinner. But he does his job and he helps the
Right.
team get better. So with that aspect, I don't think he's in the top 5. If you guys want me to sit here and give names, I can, but I don't think that he's in the top 5. I'll tell you one guy who no one talks about anymore who is in the top 5, Andy Reid, because he is a proven coach that can put together talent
Right,
when
like
there is
Kansas
no
City,
talent.
Kansas City.
Talk about a team. Talk about like a coach that hasn't really proven like himself in the big game, but has gotten teams there consistently.
Same with
year
John
after
Fox. I
year
think John
after
Fox is
year.
in the top
Okay,
5.
you know why? Honest, other than Belichick, I think the second best coach in football is Mike Tomlin.
I hate to say it, but I couldn't agree. I would
Yeah.
say second best. He's definitely top 5.
Oh, I think Mike
Yeah.
Tomlin's
because
a
he's
great
both.
coach.
He's a player's coach and he's a coach.
He'll get in your face.
He'll get in your
though,
face and
yeah.
have no problem.
Right.
So I like him.
Same with Mike McCarthy.
Yeah,
if it goes,
I think he
Yeah.
scrapes out into the top 5.
True.
You know, all right, but I also think Mike McCarthy got very, very lucky in the fact that Aaron Rodgers
True.
just so happened to land in his lap like
Well,
that.
like the whole thing is that Green Bay could have
Because
not.
Mike McCarthy was on
I mean,
the
we
hot
can-
seat. Mike
we can-
McCarthy was on the hot seat.
Yeah, we can definitely talk about
a
this.
while.
We can talk about this a lot later in like other shows and everything because we'll definitely talk about this like when it comes to off-season stuff. But Green Bay really, really lucked out because they went from Brett Favre, one of the best quarterbacks, arguably of all time, to Aaron Rodgers, one right after
But
the other.
He
And
sat
that's
behind him though.
And that's elite quarterback to elite
But
quarterback.
he was behind him.
Right.
It's not like you.
No, I'm not saying like
You made it sound like
It was like
I'm
Joe
saying-
Montana and Steve Young kind of thing.
right. It was just
I'm
like
not saying
the way
that
that it's
part of Joe
switched out. It's
Montana,
just like
but-
you usually don't go
And
from
Pats fans are hoping
amazing
that's what
quarter
Garoppolo can do.
or someone else maybe. Like all I'm saying is that McCarthy lucked out because you usually never go from elite quarterback to elite quarterback. Like Bledsoe was really good, and then Brady came in and was better. Like that's usually how it goes, or you get worse.
But this is
It's
how I
usually
tell
not like
if a guy
high
is a good
quality
coach.
to high quality.
Could you bring in someone like a Tony Sperano, who's he's a coach's guy? I mean he's a player's guy.
He's more of a coordinator.
Right, he's more of a coordinator, but he can be a head coach. If you brought him into Seattle, would he win games still? Because that team is so talented. I think he would. So I'm not taking anything away from Pete Carroll, but I'm not saying you can put a blind man in there. But if you have an average coach could still coach that team pretty good because of the amount of talent they have, especially defensively.
But I think you got to give credit to Carroll and
I'm not taking credit away.
No, I'm just saying you got to give credit to Carroll because a big part of a head coach's job is not just on the field; it's off the field, and it's getting the right pieces to the puzzle.
Right.
And I think that a head coach is almost more of a GM than a GM in some cases.
That's true.
I mean, you have Belichick GMing for essentially the Patriots because he could run player
Because he
personnel for
knows
them,
football better. Like the coaches know football more than the GMs do.
essentially,
GM
and that's why Idzik was terrible for
right.
For
He
New
didn't
York.
know football. He
Right.
knew numbers.
He knew
the
business,
GM
and
needs
that
to
was
know
it,
numbers, and that's what it came down to.
You need a money man for a GM, but
Right.
your head coach should really be the GM of your team.
Right, the GM, he should be making
So-
a GM. Yeah.
So I think as much of a big part of the decision is on the field stuff, I think off the field also should give coaches credit as to whether they're really good or not.
Right, I can make also. I mean, like Phil Jackson, for example. I mean, I'm not saying Phil Jackson's a great basketball coach, obviously.
doesn't do much.
But look
like
who
a
he had on
Popovich.
his team. He
That's
got
like
George.
Popovich.
Yeah.
Popovich doesn't really coach, but look at how good the Spurs are every single year.
Right. But I mean, Phil Jackson had Jordan. He had
That's
Kobe.
Pippen.
He had Shaq. He had
But
Pippen.
another thing about a player's coach is the team chemistry is always
Right,
good.
exactly.
Team chemistry will always be good if you have a player's coach.
And Phil Jackson, look,
Right.
I mean, he coached Kobe. And
That's
it was,
tough to
who
do.
was just probably the hardest person
And
ever
Shaq
to
at the
coach.
same
And
time,
Shaq
and
at the same time.
they would fight
and
with
they
each
would
other.
fight with each
Yeah.
other, but they would still win championships, which
Yeah.
makes Phil Jackson such a good coach. He knows
Right.
basketball
Yep.
so well. But that's what it comes down to.
Right, I mean, like you had no 12th man before Pete Carroll came in and helped that team really
Oh yeah.
get their
He gets them
Get-
fired up.
get-
He gets them fired up.
right. They have that fire.
like
They
playing
have
for him.
that.
That
right.
makes. I mean, that's half the battle. Look at Oakland this year. I'll use the same guy, Tony Sperano. When they didn't win a game, and then he took over once they fired
Dennis Allen.
Dennis Allen. Thank you. They won 3 games.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The players love playing for a guy. You're gonna produce more on the field. If there's negativity in the locker room,
Same thing with San Fran.
same thing with Newberry basketball. There's negativity in the locker room. No one wants to play and win games. You're not winning games.
Oh man. All right, guys. I think this is all the time we have. We're not going to do our usual 90 minutes because we have to upload this, and this is going to take forever. But thank you guys for listening. Thank you guys for listening. And next week, hopefully, we'll be back to a Tuesday time slot, unless there's another blizzard. This is New England. There's supposed to be 3 snowstorms the next week and a half. So hopefully, we'll be back. If not, we'll be here on Fridays if we can get everything working. Sorry about our technical problems again. Hope this kind of satisfies. You can see that we're all faces for radio instead of TV.
Yes.
So be sure to also follow our Twitter account at NFL Korner 3, Korner with a K, 3 just the number, to see what we think about NFL issues in 140 characters or less. Stay up to date with NFL news, and feel free to ask us NFL questions.
One other breaking news thing. We touched upon this earlier in the week. We are up here in New England, but down, if any of our listeners happen to be down in Florida, in Miami, Richie Incognito is actually holding a meditation class on Sunday before the Super Bowl. So, big things happening for him. We'll see you guys next week.
Thank you guys for listening, and you would be listening, now you're just listening to the NFL Corner. See you guys later.